Right, if we're going to start this then, Mitch, we've got to start with the music. Thanks, Mitch. Hopefully you'll be hearing more about Mitch soon. So we're here today with Simon Gibbs.
Hello.
No George today.
No
Well, we
George.
have got George today. He's in the background, but because George is leaving us, deserting us, running off to Australia.
Bust.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't say.
No, you can, I suppose. We thought we'd get Simon asking some questions today, and Mitch is practicing on the technology side of things for when George leaves us.
Bust.
So, Simon, over to you.
Yeah.
I understand
Hello.
you have
Morning.
some questions. Good
Morning.
morning. It's a bit early, isn't it?
It's quite. Well, it's all right. Just crack on, isn't you? Just get on.
You've probably been down the gym already, though, haven't you?
Been down the gym, pumping some iron.
No, see, I just
No, I
rolled
haven't
out of
really,
bed,
it's a joke.
got in the car, come here. It's like, oh, no, really? Podcast?
But, we'll have some fun. And actually, first question is, and I don't know if you'd like to share it. Obviously, you've been apparently having a recurring dream about Joe from Prestige. I don't know if you would like to share that.
Probably not. Probably not. Last night, I never dream, right? I never dream. But last night, I had a reoccurring dream about Joe from Prestige. We're in a car. Better get onto this bit really quickly. In a car, going on holiday. Me, Joe, and a few others, don't even know who they were. We get halfway to the airport, realise that I've forgotten my suitcase, right? So we tell the people at the front and whoever's driving, forgot my suitcase. Joe agrees he'll come back with me to get the suitcase. So we get out and somehow we end up in another car coming back to get the suitcase. And we're just not getting anywhere. And I don't know what time the flight is going back out, right? So I'm really anxious and feeling... And then I wake up and think, oh, that was weird. And then I go back to sleep. And then I have the same dream at the same point with the same anxiety. Then I wake up again. It happens 4 times. 4 times. So in the end, I wake up Lou, and I just said, Lou, I know you're not Freud, but can you tell me what this means?
Oh my word! Yeah, that is a bit worrying.
It's a bit worrying, yeah.
Was anyone else in the dream? Was it just you?
No,
and Joe?
just me and Joe from Prestige.
Oh my word!
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
But,
we'll leave
thanks
that
for bringing it up.
We'll leave
yeah.
that to the viewers. To
yeah, the
figure that one
viewers
out.
and my psychologist.
Joe, if you want to write in.
Yeah, that's
just
right.
to-
Exactly.
But oh dear, that is a funny one. But yeah, well, look, we're here today, and we've actually been working together for nearly a decade, Mike.
Have we?
Nearly a decade.
Is it nearly a decade? Are you going to want to watch or something?
Well, Emma, she got
lunch. She got lunch and flowers.
Oh my word!
Yeah, I'll get
But
you.
yeah, I'll watch. Yeah, watch. It'd be nice.
I'll
Thanks
get
very
you a
much.
dumbbell or something.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, thanks very much. But along that time, we've seen quite a lot of changes and improvements in the business.
Yeah, we really have, haven't we?
So, and it's been a lot of changes actually when you start thinking about it. And we've also have a lot of challenges and adventures along the way. So, I just wanted to really talk about those adventures and challenges. But first of all, I know that your brother Pete is going on an adventure very shortly.
Yeah, he came in yesterday, didn't he?
He did,
And,
and he shared a great video with us. But would you be able to sort of share that story?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like he came in yesterday, and Max Clark had built a little video for him because Pete is about to take on an amazing challenge of crossing the Atlantic. And when he does it, I say when he does it, he's going to be the oldest man ever to have achieved the crossing. And Pete's awesome. He really is. He's my older brother, and I started work with Pete actually when I left school. He's a roofer, and we worked together for a period of time. But he's always kind of had an eye for adventure, and he started out. His first one was crossing the Channel, and I went with him on his first crossing attempt. And we was out there for 5 hours. I was being sick for about 4.5 of them. and Pete gave up and then tried again. And on the last attempt, he did it, and he managed to cross in 18 hours, 11 minutes, which is just, if anybody's been out to sea just for 5 minutes, being in that cold water, just being thrown around, and, the hunger and the mind games, and, let alone how deep that water is and that fear of what's underneath you. I couldn't be in there for 2 minutes personally. But yeah, he did that in 18 hours, 11 minutes. And the ironic thing is that actually, I've got 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and none of us can swim, a length at most. Pete took all the ability when he was born. So we did that. And then he walked. So when he swam the channel, he landed in a place called Cap Grenade. So he decided then to walk across Europe to Gibraltar. So I think it was 1,700 miles. So he walked 35 miles a day until he reached Gibraltar. Absolutely incredible. But we're going to get Pete onto a podcast in the coming weeks to talk more about that. But the guy's incredible. He really is. And then he's taking on this Atlantic Row. So that's going to be in December. He's going to be taking that on. So yeah, really, really good guy. Got a lot of stories. Yeah,
unbelievable. I did actually think about rowing the Atlantic at one point.
You thought about it?
I did think about it. Me and a friend of mine, and then.
This is serious. I thought you had a little joke coming.
No, it was. Well, no, it was Fred Joe from Prestige. It was in my dream. That's what I was saying. And then I woke up. That definitely wasn't a reoccurring dream. That one. We did a little bit of investigation, and it was wow, and we had a very enthusiastic friend of ours that had done that but he was an Apache pilot, and just another level, another caliber of man. And he kind of led us down this kind of, you'll be fine, no worries. Just honestly, it's literally like just going to the gym normally. Really, is it? We'll give that a go. And then realised, no, that's
it is another level, isn't it?
Absolutely another level. So you should be very proud. And
we all are. The whole family are really proud of what Pete's achieved. He's an amazing guy. He really is.
And when's he off?
Sometime in December. He's just currently
when it's freezing.
Yeah, when it's cold. Yeah, exactly. But he's currently finishing the build of the boat. That should be done in about a week or so. And then he starts his training. But the joke of it all is, and the story for another time, but he's never been out in the water. Honestly, it's when I think about it, I know he'll do it, but when I think about it, it's just madness. It really is.
Unbelievable. Well, wish him best of luck, and I can't wait to hear his stories when he's on. Cool. But you've had a fair amount of challenges yourself, and actually raised a hell of a lot of money for charity. So I remember one story you were telling me about Uganda, actually, and how it actually nearly didn't happen if it wasn't for some sort of clear vision and some good fortune. Would you be able to tell us a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, it was a great story, that one. It was Chris, who used to be our Southwest rep, Chris Turner, used to work for Vida Products back in the day. He left, and he's given all of his time, an incredible guy, actually. He's given all of his time to working with his charity, which is EduKid. And at the time, he was raising money to put children back into education that had come back from the recent war in Uganda. And so Chris and I met one day at a service station, and we were chatting. He said, I'd like to go out there and see where some of this money's going. Would you like to come with me? I said, yeah, I'd love to come with you. What are we going out there for? He said, well, to meet some of the kids and see how they live. And I said, that's fantastic, but can we go out and do something? I didn't know what, but let's have a conversation about this. Surely it could be more than a holiday. Let's go out and actually achieve something. And we decided that we should go out and make a documentary about these kids that had come back from the war in Uganda, and putting them back into education. If we could make a documentary, then we could show it to schools and show it to individuals, and get more of these children sponsored and put back into school. So Chris said, that's a wonderful idea. But how are we going to do it? It will cost us thousands. And I just had this feeling that all we needed to do was focus on the end goal, and the rest would follow. And anyway, we priced it all up, and we realised, what the result needed to be and why we wanted to do it, and then, the method. But then let go and just kind of focused on the fact that it would happen, and we just had to be patient. So along the way, we had some really kind of incredible coincidences, if you like. I remember going to a photo shoot at David Crozier's at the Cabin, and meeting a guy that was doing some photography work there, and I started telling him about this story about Uganda, and he said to me, "Oh, that sounds amazing." And I said, "Yeah, we're looking for someone to make a documentary for us." He said, "I'd love to do that." "Really?" "Yeah, I'd love to do that." So, wow, okay, well, that's great. So we got chatting, and he agreed that he could make the dates, but then we had a real problem in that the place that we were going to was Gulu in northern Uganda, and it was a sort of unique type of language, and we couldn't speak the language, of course. So how were we going to go and make a documentary? So a guy came into Pulse, and we were talking about his speakers, and I was trying to sort of help him to develop this range and give him advice on where it should be distributed, and just chatting for hours. And then again, I mentioned this trip that I was going to make to Uganda, and that we were looking for this person that could speak the local language, and how impossible this seemed to be. And he said, "Just hold on a second. I know somebody. I know there's a BBC sports correspondent that works as well in the US, that lives half his time in the US and half his time in Uganda. Let me give him a call. He might know somebody." So he calls this guy up, and luckily enough, the 6 months that he's in Uganda, we're going to Uganda, he happens to speak the local tribal language of Gulu, and he's very willing to meet us and to come up to Gulu with us. So now we've got the documentary maker, and we've got the translator. It's amazing. This is unbelievable. This is incredible. And Chris is like, "This is fantastic, Mike. This is fantastic. But this is going to cost us £8,000, and there's 3.5 weeks to go, and we still haven't got the money." I said, "It'll be fine." And I don't know why, but I was just absolutely convinced that it would come. And anyway, about 2.5 weeks to go, and 20th Century Fox called me up, a contact that I had there, a lady called Liz. "Mike, we need to put a stand together at the Gadget Show, I believe it was, and we need to market digital download, and we want to put a stand together, and we want you guys to capture the audience, and we want you to demonstrate cinema, and these are the dates, and would you be able to do it for us, and if so, how much?" "Oh, yeah, we can do that. Yeah. How much?" "Oh, it's £8,000. And so she transferred the £8,000 into the account, and we paid it into the charity's account, and therefore we could fund this incredible trip.
Unbelievable.
And we went out and we made a documentary, and we came back and we introduced it to schools and individuals, and now all those years later, we're literally sponsoring hundreds of children, putting them back into school, and it was just an incredible journey. It really was, and speaking about it now, it's quite an emotional kind of story, because it meant so much. But I think the premise of the story really is that when you've got a goal and you believe in your goal so much, as long as you let go and you've got ultimate belief, I'm absolutely convinced that these coincidences, if you like, do show up to lead you to where you need to get to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we always focus a lot about energy and about, where our focuses are. That story is incredible. And it always gives, puts my hairs up on end, never gets old. I tell everyone that story. I really, really love that.
Yeah.
And it's just such a powerful message, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it really is. No, I love it, and we still sort of continue doing work for Educid, and I love going out there and meeting some of the kids. And you should come out with me one day. You'd love it. I took Ollie for his birthday, his 18th birthday, and we went out together. And I think, you know what, he probably doesn't know it, but I believe it changed his life. You know, some of the kids that we saw out there that were struggling, and the fact that these kids were literally struggling to know where their next meal was going to come from, and walking miles to pump water from the ground.
Definitely.
And some of the heartache that we saw out there was just on another level. But we were able to go in and help, and I think it taught Ollie a lot, and I think anybody that gets the opportunity to take their teenage son out to a place like Uganda to experience what we did should do, because we're blessed in the Western world, right? We do take a lot for granted, and I think that was a really good lesson for me and for him. It was a really good little journey together.
Oh, awesome. And it doesn't stop there. So I believe you took a little trip over to Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, it was.
Is that with SMC?
Yeah, David from SMC. So we went and did Kilimanjaro. We were trying to raise money at the time for Amy, who sadly passed away. She was my ex-wife's uncle's daughter. She unfortunately had awful leukemia for three times. It reoccurred, and then she eventually passed away. But we went out to try and raise money for her mum and dad's charity. And it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done, Kilimanjaro. David Smith from SMC absolutely breezed it, but it was I don't know what it was, but what I do actually, we were supposed to take altitude sickness tablets, and I'm one of these guys that I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't take drugs. I'm pretty clean living. So the thought of taking these altitude tablets or any tablets was, so they told me 3 days before you've got to take one tablet a day, and then you've got to build it up. So I took half a tablet the day of the climb, and then realised very quickly when I got to the top, well, near the top, that the altitude sickness was kicking in. It was so hard. I remember being on my knees, and the last piece of the walk is called the Death March, and for about 8 hours you have to walk like at snail's pace to stop yourself feeling like you're running at full speed. We had guys carrying all of our camping equipment, and sort of I was on my knees being sick. I remember it really well, and looking up at the guy and saying, "How long have we got to go?" And he's like, we've got 8 hours at least, Mike. And I got up and carried on walking. And I think it's a similar sort of story to the Uganda story. In the beginning, before I kind of took on the challenge, I imagined it as if it had already happened. I remember going to see a guy called Anthony Robbins once at the Excel, and listening to lots of his CDs and books and things, and him saying something that really resonated, that the mind doesn't know the difference between what you vividly imagine and what actually happens. And so for me, that really resonated. So anything I've ever done, I've kind of tried to plan it with the end in mind, and trying to imagine it in its every detail. And then you kind of work back from there. And it's almost like then the subconscious won't give up. It's just prepared to give you so many different options. You know, when you feel like you've reached a wall, it gives you ideas to be able to get through it and to come through and get to where you need to get to. But we managed to raise lots of money. In the end, we raised nearly £100,000 for a number of different causes over a period of time. You know, running marathons and climbing Kilimanjaro, 3-peak challenge, 100k walk. And I enjoyed every one of them so much. But they've all got a story, and they've all got a link with that kind of end in mind, right?
Definitely.
And that's how me and you, I know, Simon, we talk a lot about end in mind when we're delivering things here at Pulse and doing events and, you know, building new demo rooms. It's an important lesson to learn for sure.
And actually, on that 3 Peaks challenge, I think you've got a funny story to share. Is it about a van?
Yeah, the van. Yeah. so there was about 15 of us, and I was doing it with Andy Jones from Barco. There was Bob Hobson, bless him, obviously passed away a number of years ago, and a number of other friends. My brother Pete was there as well, and again, we were trying to raise a certain amount of money. It was £20,000, and we were kind of trying to get a van to get us up there. And we went to this hire place, and they said, "Yeah, we've got a van for those dates." So we hired it, but it had a speed limiter on it. It would only go 60 miles an hour. So we're heading up to our first climb up in Scotland, and all of us in the van heading up, and we all of a sudden we smell burning, and it's the battery basically smoking away, and so the driver pulls over, and we realise that we're pretty screwed. This thing is not well at all. And so we get out of the van, and I kid you not, there in the distance, probably less than 500 metres away, was a hire company hiring the same vans, right? So we walk up to we call the breakdown company, we walk up, they've got a van over, which this van hasn't got a speed limiter on it, right? So we take this van, and then we drive from there up to Scotland, and then the following day we obviously we start the climb, we do the first climb, we come down, and the key to the Three Peak Challenge is that you've got the climbs, the 3 climbs, but also you've got the journey in between. Because we didn't have to drive at 60 miles an hour, we got to the final climb, and Bob and I knew that we had a certain amount of time to get up, and we were literally ready in the van to go. And we got to the top, and we managed to do it in 23 hours. I've got a great picture, actually, which I'll share. 23 hours, 48 minutes, I think it was. But when I look back, if it wasn't for that van breaking down, if it wasn't for the fact that there was a van hire shop 500 yards up the road, then, you know what, we wouldn't have done it.
Could still be out there.
We could still be there. Yeah, exactly. But it's a really kind of fascinating story. We had that was one of the better ones. I really enjoyed that. The Three Peak was amazing. I still have great memories about that. Not so much about Kilimanjaro. I think that affected me for years after. I really do. I don't think I've ever been the same since suffering altitude sickness doing that one. But Three Peak was amazing.
Yeah, that's the one I thought about, but it looks hard.
You got to stop thinking.
I've got to stop thinking.
Just do it.
Just
do it.
Just got to get on with it. We have touched on this actually already, but obviously we speak a lot about business and the challenges of running a business.
Yeah.
Are there things from your trips that have helped in business, or what are the main things that you've learned?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when you set up a business, I literally think it's like a mountain climb. And I remember again, Robbins or somebody else stating that the mind will give up 10 times before the body will. And I know, talking to Pete on his first, second, third, fourth attempt of the channel, it wasn't until his fifth that Pete and I, on some of our walks, would kind of have these eureka moments. And one of them was for Pete on his fifth attempt at swimming the channel, and me when I've kind of thought about some of the successes that I've had. Pete imagined that swim in its every detail. He literally imagined, getting out of the water. He imagined walking up the rocks. Bizarrely, even imagined a lady coming towards him with a dog. It sounds really odd, but this will come up in a future podcast. But he literally imagined it in his every detail. And again, the subconscious is so powerful. And so when I believe people do give up too early, I believe that the result in their head isn't formed clearly enough. So they don't believe it like it's already happened.
Definitely.
You've got to get to a point of almost knowing, and then I believe the subconscious will give you whatever you need to lead you to where it is you need to go.
Definitely.
I know it sounds a bit woo-woo, but honestly, over the years, it's just
obviously the begin with the end in mind, and knowing where the like you always said to me, you don't get in a car and just drive somewhere. You know where you've got to go. Get in the car, drive there.
But it's funny, you talk to people in business that are struggling with their business, And you'll say, where are you going with this? And the answer is very sketchy and not in full detail, and it's like they can't communicate it even to you or themselves. And I always use that analogy that, when we get in a car in the morning, if we want to go to Glasgow, we think, what's our outcome? Where do we want to end up? How are we going to get there? Why do we want to go there? There's an RPM, there's a results, a purpose, there's a method, and we know precisely what time we're going to leave, what time we want to be there. There's a plan, and have a guess what? We end up getting there because we've got a plan and we've got a route and we know what we want to do. And if obstacles come along the way, like there's a road closure or something's happened, you just detour around it and you crack on. You end up still with the destination most of the time that you want. And it's the same in business. Having a real clear focus in your business about where it is you're heading is so important, so important. And that's perhaps a story for another time. But Pulse was exactly the same, sitting in a library, planning it out, deciding what it is that I wanted it to look like when it was completed. And then watching the kind of, coincidences and the chance meetings to get you the right brands and the right people and the right facilities. It's an amazing concept to follow. But I've read so many books on the subject and been to so many seminars on the subject, but I've lived it too, and I've watched my brother and I've watched myself and I've watched others following this kind of this routine, and it really does work.
And looking back, imagining yourself at the beginning, and looking forward and where we are now, how close is it?
It's amazing. It's
what
amazing.
You imagined?
It really is absolutely incredible. And you know what? I believe that what I've done over the last couple of months with Capes and with you, Simon, in our meetings is really plan out what it is that we want next. Because actually we got to a point where we had achieved what it is that we had set out right in the beginning to achieve. And I kept wondering why I was kind of hitting walls. And then I realised that actually my goal really had been achieved. So in recent months, we've all sat round and we've come up with new ideas, our new results of how we want to grow the company and where we want to take it to. And again, we're making incredible leaps in progress, aren't we? The first two months of this year have been incredible for us. I think 60% up on the same period last year. Absolutely. And I think that's down to us all having a common goal and knowing where it is that we're heading.
Just having that focus, and I think that's the main key. You're right. It's such a powerful thing, and you end up being a magnet, and other elements, or you tend to be able to listen out for things, and they appear, and you think, oh, well, that's great. I managed to get this project, or I managed to. Well, no, it's because you're in tune with it all.
Definitely, yeah.
So,
and I know it does sound a bit woo-woo.
Yeah,
and I apologise for it, but I promise you, it's a fascinating subject and one that I believe that more people should kind of research.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And obviously, all of your words of wisdom and motivational stories, you've liked to pass on to as many people as possible, which is brilliant, and I love listening to them. One person in particular, your son, you've actually produced a book for him.
Yeah, I have produced a book.
And what's the name of the book?
Well, I've got it here, so I'll grab it for you. He let me borrow it. So, Words of Wisdom for My Son. And so I wrote that over the last year for Ollie's 21st birthday, as I've mentioned in the previous podcast. And having that kind of deadline of his birthday on the 26th of February meant that I had, my result, my purpose and my method to be able to get it from an idea in my head to actually producing a book. And that, I guess there's no difference, right, between this, a business, climbing a mountain, raising money. It's all
definitely
designed with the end in mind.
Absolutely.
Right? What the mind can conceive. I believe that the potential is there to be able to.
There's some great I've read through some of the quotes, and there's some great quotes and inspiration. Inspiration. One of them actually, number 22. Focus 5% of your time on the problem, and the rest, that's 95%, on the solution. And that rings very true. So unfortunately, that is a huge problem, actually. So a lot of the time, it's the other way around, and I think everyone's experienced that, and it's quite hard to be able to change your focus to make sure that, and put things behind you, I guess, in certain circumstances.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I've got a funny story. I won't share any names or anything, but I remember working with an individual years ago who came to me, and I was trying to complete a project, and he looked at me and he said, "The problem with you, son," he said, "you focus too much on what it is you want, and not enough on the problems." And I said, and at that point I realised that me and him were not aligned. But it's, it's such a simple one. But I think that when I think about my life, and I think about the way I've been over the years, I think that's one quote that I stand by. Is I very often in business or situations that I'm in, spot a problem, but I'll literally give it 5% of my time, and then the rest of the time is focused on what can I do next? What can I do to improve the situation? What can I do to get the outcome that I need?
Definitely. And 105. There is nothing more motivational than knowing your boss cares about his players more than he does about the result. I like that one.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, over the years, I've kind of attempted, done my best to do that most of the time.
Definitely.
I do care about people. I do care about, of course, I want a successful business and I want successful outcomes, but I really care more so that I remember when I was first starting the business and I had this vision, because I wasn't happy during a number of jobs before starting my own business, and I had this vision of people going home in the evening and saying, "I love Pulse, I love working at Pulse." That was really important to me. It was really important that this wasn't a job. This was an extension of family and part of life, and that people would really enjoy their journey. And hopefully that's been the case for most people. Definitely. That have been here.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with you, and I feel that very way. Absolutely.
Oh, that's
Absolutely.
Great. That's great.
And there are some. The list goes on here, and there's another one here, which is, I'd say, very relevant for distributors and dealers alike. People may not remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. I think that's it's a huge part of distribution, especially. A lot of the time it's how we've helped our dealers and how we've helped the client, and that's obviously what we strive for at Pulse Cinemas. I think that's a really, really important one.
Yeah, well, I don't need to say any more on that. You've explained it really well. That's exactly it. It's I think we're all guilty of feeling like we need to over-explain and talk too much. But actually, a lot of the time, I think we're there for our dealers, right? And we're there to try and help. And that's a big focus of ours, isn't it? And it has been for a number of years. Is just doing what we can, no matter what it costs, to help fix a situation that isn't going to plan, perhaps.
Absolutely. I say the list goes on, but I think finally, build a business that quickly allows you time to ride your bike.
Yeah, about
When's
that.
The bike? When's the bike coming?
About that. Well, do you know what? When I say quickly, I think that the point of it is that you build a team around you, and I believe that Capes and I have done that very well. We've got, I think up to a number of years ago, I was working in the business and working at 1,000 miles an hour, and I was involved in everything. And it wasn't until we brought in our business coach, Tina, that I had that kind of eureka moment that this had to stop. I was feeling like I was getting pretty burnt out by that. And then we set up the department heads, and obviously you're heading your department and Emma's heading her department. And it feels like now that I'm kind of speaking to you and I'm speaking to Emma, and you guys are every day you're doing what it is you need to do. And I'm working more on the business than in the business. So I haven't a job in the business, but I'm working on it to develop it every day, working on sales ideas and marketing ideas and strategy. I'm loving it again. I really am. I feel infused and energized by this business again. And a lot of it's down to doing what we sort of started out on this podcast talking about, is coming up with a new result. What is it we want now? We've come this far. What do we want next?
And sometimes I guess you only see that if you take the head out the sand, and have a look around.
Definitely.
I
So I could be out on my bike. The answer to the question is I could be out on my bike more, but I'm actually really enjoying it now. So I'm back. I'm back enjoying the business more than I ever have done. So I think that I'm at a point where I will be very soon able to get on my bike more and know that the company is running beautifully. I could do that today. I know I could. It's incredible. This business is so much better, so much more professional on every level than it was a couple of years ago. Definitely. And a lot of that comes down to you and Emma and all of the team. We have an amazing team, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody does their bit. We should be really proud of what we've done here.
Absolutely. As I say, the list goes on in this book. It's an absolutely incredible book. Yeah, there are so many in here. It's such an amazing thing to have done. It will really set Ollie up for time ahead.
I hope so. I did say to him when I gave it to him, I said to him, I bought you something, but I'm not sure if you're going to get it immediately. But you might read it in a few years' time and appreciate it. Definitely. So
I must admit, there is a time a few years back, and you're talking to me, and I'm like, "Oh, Mike, calm down, mate. What's all this?" And but now I really, really do get it. And as I say, reading through this, it's really, really powerful. And I think he should be very proud to have you as his dad.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So an amazing thing to do. So
thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Mike, for joining us today. It's been, what's the word? It's just nice. Very nice, mate. No, it's been.
There's a story for another time.
No, it's been absolutely incredible listening to your stories. Very inspirational. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, Simon.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Bye.